for our closing plenary of the second Men Engage Global Symposium on Men and Boys for Gender Justice. It's been a hectic few days. I've seen all of us rushing here and there, attending the various breakout sessions, participating in the debates, presenting our papers, our posters, networking furiously over lunch and tea, and I'm sure having a good time in the evening as well. And I hope you've enjoyed the city of Delhi, especially the lovely weather we've been having the last few days. So we now move into the session, which is the final one of our symposium. And I'm very glad to let you know that we're expecting our friends from UNFPA and from the UN Resident Coordinator's Office to join us. But until then, I'm going to call onto the stage those who will be speaking in today's plenary. I'd like to call the co-chairs of the Men Engage Network, Gary Barker and Dean
Gender
Peacock.
inequalities are related to inequalities
Please
based
come
on
up
race,
to the stage.
age, class, caste, ethnicity,
Yes.
nationality, sexual
Let's give
orientation,
them a hand.
gender identity, region, ability, and other factors.
The call to
We
action,
commit
which
to
is the
promoting
Delhi
social
Declaration
and economic
emerging from this
inclusion
symposium,
through meaningful
has seen a
participation,
lot of
deep
fevered
participation,
negotiation,
and joint
discussion,
actions
and drafting
among
over the
social
last couple of
justice
days and
movements.
nights. And there's several people who've been part of that. But I'm just calling on to
Our
the
belief,
Jaya
behaviors,
Belakar from the India
relationships,
Organizing
and
Committee,
organizational
who will be
structures
coordinating the presentation
must reflect
of the
those
Delhi
we want
Declaration.
to see
Jaya.
in the world.
Let's give
To
her a
do
hand.
so, we must hold ourselves as well as our friends,
I would
relatives,
also like
colleagues,
to call on the
and our
stage
allies
Dr.
accountable.
Sanjay Srivastava, also a member of the India Organizing Committee, who will be closing today's
Investments in
plenary.
engaging,
Sanjay,
investment in engaging men and boys in gender justice work
Give
makes
him a
this work
hand.
more comprehensive. But it should not detract from investments in other effective strategies, especially those
and I-
undertaken by women's rights organizations. We call on policymakers and donors to dramatically increase the resources available for all gender justice work and to include effective gender justice strategies in all development programs.
Do we have our friend Tyrone here? We have been looking for you, but if you are not there, let me read point number 9.
So,
The
we are still
post-2015
expecting our
development
friends from the
agenda
UN
must
to join
embrace
us
a
on the
human rights
stage.
approach
But
and also
as
transform unequal power
time is of the
relations.
essence
We
today,
advocate for all
people are
activists,
traveling, they have
civil
flights to
society
catch,
organizations,
and
private
we
sector
also have a
partners,
time-bound
governments
program
and
with
UN
this
agencies
hall.
to actively
so I'm
promote these
actually going
principles
to
and
move
ensure
straight
that the
in
new international
and,
development agenda is just
Perhaps we'll
and
start
inclusive.
with the
Thank
reading
you
out
very much.
of the declaration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to invite Jaya, and she, along with other colleagues, will be presenting the Delhi Declaration to you. Thank you,
The floor
Jaya.
is yours.
And let's give a big hand for the drafting committee.
Thanks, Joshua. Good
This
afternoon.
is days and nights
A small
of
group
work.
of us
While the rest of us
from
were
Men
having
Engaged
fun
Steering Committee and India Organizing
partying
Committee,
and listening
we
to
have
music,
worked on
they were
this draft.
sitting and
Of course, with
debating
inputs
furiously.
from many of you.
I
Some
have
are
great
some
pleasure
steering
in
committee
inviting
members,
onto the
IOC
stage
members,
our
many
guests
of you
of honor,
delegates have given
Ms.
us
Lees Grant,
feedback,
UN
and
Resident
also we have
Coordinator
picked
for
some
India.
messages and pledges
Let's
that
give
you have
her a
posted
hand.
on the banners. I thank everybody who has contributed to this
And
draft.
our friend, colleague,
Friends, you
and
know, any
great
such
supporter,
declaration
Ms.
is a
Frederica
political
Meyer
statement, and therefore a
of the
contestation for
UNFPA
space
country office,
is
country
intrinsic to
coordinator
this
of
space,
UNFPA.
to this process. The drafting committee has tried its best to capture the spirit behind many suggestions and formulations. Excuse us if
So,
exact
Lise
formulations
and
that
Frederica, you
sent
just
are
managed
missing,
to get the
a few
end
commas
of the
and few
Delhi
semicolons are missing.
Declaration, which is
You will
the call
agree that
from
good
this
need not
particular
be enemy of the
symposium
best.
to
Now I invite all
ourselves
my
and
colleagues
to the
who
rest
have
of the
worked on
world.
this draft and who are going to
And,
read one by one
would
to
like to
come,
speak
come to the stage.
So I'd like to, I know it's kind of sudden, you've just walked in. So I'd like to invite Lise to give us her thoughts on
I begin
what
with
she
it.
sees as
Can
the
we have the
directions
projection?
for beyond 2015. Please.
All of you have been given a copy of the
Allow me to start by
declaration.
paying my respects to
And we
the
are also
colleagues
going to
who are
have
on
a
the podium
projection.
and to warmly greeting
We
all
are not
of
going to
you
read
in
the whole
solidarity. As the head of the
document for the
28
want of
United
time,
Nations
but we'll
agencies
take
that have
main
the
points.
privilege of serving in India, we're
Chronologically,
honored to be part of
my
this closing
colleagues will
ceremony
read one
and
by one.
session.
Can we have
This
the
has been an
projection?
enormously
Yes.
important
So you can
conference.
see
I
more
don't
than
have to tell you
1,200
that.
activists and
Allow
other
us to
professionals coming
congratulate
from
the
94
host, the Men
countries and
Engaged
with a
Global
broad
Alliance
variety of
and the Center
organizational
for Health and
backgrounds,
Social Justice for
convened the
bringing
second
together
Men Engaged Global
1,200
Symposium
delegates
in New
from
Delhi,
94
India
countries
from November
to talk
10 to
about
13,
gender justice.
2014.
The UN family
As an
feels
outcome of
privileged
this
to have been a
historic
partner
event and as a
of this
shared
symposium.
commitment
A lot
and
of
call
ground
to
has been
action,
covered in the last
we
12
offer
days
the
in
following
ways that we
concerns
all
and
should be proud of.
affirmations.
Really important issues have been talked about, argued about, and explored. We've looked at socializing and norming, health and well-being, poverty and work,
Number
care,
one.
relationships,
Patriarchy
and,
and
emotions,
gender
sexuality
injustice
and
remain
identities,
defining
peace-building,
characteristics
social
of
justice and
societies
inclusion,
around the world
and we've looked at
with
violence.
devastating effects on
We've
everyone's
heard
daily
experts
life.
and practitioners talk
We
about
urgently
these issues
need
in
to overcome these
26
immense
sessions
threats
and
to human
numerous
well-being.
satellite meetings. We've looked at 400 abstracts from 63 countries, visited 50 exhibition
Hi.
booths, and
Number two,
interacted with
I will talk in my
hundreds
local language.
of organizations.
ប្រព័ន្ធបិតាធិបតេយ្យ
We've reached
ប៉ះពាល់ដល់
out
អ្នកទាំងអស់
beyond
គ្នា
Delhi
ប៉ុន្តែ
through
លើ
live
ផ្នែក
coverage
ផ្សេង
in
ផ្សេង
social
គ្នា
media,
យើងត្រូវការ
spurring
ការទទួលស្គាល់
debates,
ជាបន្ទាន់
networks, and
វិសម
informal
ភាព
meetings
gender
that will
គឺ
keep
មិន
the
អាចទទួលយកបាន
conversation going for
វា
years
ប៉ះ
to
ពាល់ដល់
come.
អ្នកមិន
There
ថា
is
អ្នកជាអ្នកណា
also
ក៏
no
ដោយ
doubt that we've created a buzz for the He for She campaign, something we care a lot about in the UN.
Number three,
It's a mark of the
build
conference's
on a precious
success and
heritage.
impact
We
that
owe
the
our awareness
discussions
of
between
gender
experts,
injustices, our
academics,
efforts to
gender
promote
activists,
gender equality,
transgender
and the
activists,
existence of
youth
this symposium
policymakers,
itself
and
to the
civil
pioneering
society
courage
organizations
and
have
vision of
resulted in the
feminist and
10-point
women's rights
Delhi
movements.
Declaration. This
Keeping
is a
its
smart,
historical context
bold,
in view, we shall
inspirational
continue our work with men
declaration
and boys
that
towards gender
everybody should
equality,
be reading
informed
in
by
every
feminist
country.
and human
It is
rights
especially
principles,
important
organizations,
as all of us
and
around the
movements
world
in a spirit of
prepare
solidarity.
for the Beijing Plus 20 summit coming next year. A lot is at stake at the
Hello.
summit.
Number
We
4.
all of us
Creemos en el
have a
abordaje
choice
inclusivo para lograr
whether
la
to
justicia
keep
de género.
pushing for more and
Buscamos
more
hacer visibles
progress
las más
on gender
efectivas
issues
formas en
and
que
gender
hombres y niños
justice,
pueden contribuir
or
a la
whether we
igualdad de
hold
género
true
sin
to
ser
the
utilizados
progress
como
we've
meros
already made
instrumentos.
and try to consolidate it, or whether, and this is a possibility that we cannot
Urgentemente
ignore,
nós precisamos de
we
expor
allow
a
our
conexão entre a
hard-fought gains
patriarquia
to be
e a exploração
distorted
de
and
pessoas e
reshaped,
do meio
perhaps
ambiente.
even rolled back.
Precisamos de
Everyone fighting
assistir
for gender
homens e
justice,
jovens para
indeed for
mudar
any form
os seus
of social justice,
comportamentos
knows
de
that one of the
dominação de
biggest
poder
mistakes
para
we can
o
make
partilhar
is
do
to
poder.
underestimate the forces of reaction that threaten to undermine the great strides
Gender
that have been
inequalities are
made.
related to inequalities
That's what's at
based
stake
on race,
when we go to New York in
age,
March.
class,
This
caste,
conference has been
ethnicity,
at the positive end of
nationality,
the spectrum,
sexual
the
orientation,
opposite end
gender
of reaction,
identity,
charting
region,
out bold new ways of
ability,
looking
and
at
other
gender
factors.
identities
We commit
and
to
gender
promoting
practices
social
and
and
bold new
economic
ways of
inclusion
working together, of
through
engaging men and
meaningful
boys
participation,
in reaching the
deep
milestones we
participation,
want to
and
reach
joint
in the fight for
actions
gender
among
justice.
social
Of the many
justice
important points that have been
movements.
raised at the conference, I hope you will allow us to highlight 3 of the ones we have found most compelling. The
Belief,
first point, and it's an
behaviors,
unshakable one,
relationships, and
is that there
organizational
can be no gender
structures
justice
must
unless
reflect
patriarchy is
those we
challenged
want to
and is
see in
changed.
the world.
Patriarchal
To do
practices
so,
are
we
the
must
cause of the
hold
worst kinds of
ourselves
crimes against
as well
women.
as our
They are the
friends,
cause of
relatives,
intergenerational,
colleagues, and our
interconnected,
allies
unending
accountable.
discrimination against women, and they are the reason that traditional gender roles where men exercise power over
Investments in
women are
engaging-
reinforced and
investment
don't
in
go
engaging men
away.
and boys in gender
They are
justice
also
work
the reason
makes
why
this
men
work
are
more
trapped in
comprehensive.
stereotypical roles that
But it
take
should
away
not
their
detract
choices
from
and their
investments in other
freedom
effective
of
strategies,
expression.
especially those
The
who are taking
second
on women's
point
rights
is
organizations.
that gender justice isn't
We
going
call
to
on
be achieved
policymakers and
until men
donors
feel
to
comfortable
dramatically
taking on
increase
roles
the resources
traditionally seen
available
as
for
female
all
until
gender justice
domestic
work
work,
and to
family
include
work,
effective
and
gender
caregiving
justice strategies
are
in
as
all
much
development
men's
programs.
province as they are women's province. Until jobs
Do
and
we have our
work
friend
and
Tyrone
productive
here?
activities are gender blind
We have
and
been looking
gender
for you, but if
neutral.
you are
When I
not there,
say
let
this,
me
I
read
say it
point
from
number
my
9.
heart.
The
As one of the
post-
few women
2015
commanding
development
officers
agenda
in
must
United
embrace
Nations
a human rights
peacekeeping
approach
operations,
and
who
also
has
transform
commanded
unequal
troops in
power
conflicts
relations.
and wars to
We
protect
advocate for all
civilians,
activists,
I know
civil society
personally
organizations,
that when jobs
private
are
sector
gendered by
partners,
definition,
governments and
they
UN
are
agencies
unequal.
to actively
The
promote these
third
principles
great
and
compelling
ensure
point to
that
come
the
from this
new international
conference is the
development
really
agenda is
important
just
idea
and
that
inclusive.
sharing
Thank
power
you very
with
much.
women is not a zero-sum game for men, but a winning proposition. The more gender justice there is, the more child mortality goes
Thank you,
down.
Jaya.
The
And
more
let's give a
gender
big
justice
hand for the
there
drafting
is, the
committee.
higher national incomes go. The more gender justice there is, the number
This
of
is
hungry
days
people
and
goes
nights
down.
of
And
work,
as the
while the rest of
professor
us
showed
were
us
having
on that
fun
first day,
and
the more gender
partying
justice
and
there
listening to
is,
music,
the
they were
happier
sitting and
we are all going
debating
to be.
furiously.
Achieving
I
gender
have
justice
great
is
pleasure in
our
inviting
reach,
onto
but
the
as we
stage
all know,
our
it's
guests
not
of
going to
honor,
be easy to
Ms. Lees
achieve.
Grant,
One
UN
of the great
Resident
things
Coordinator
about the
for
conference
India.
has been the way that we've
her
identified
a
with
hand.
clarity and pragmatism what needs to be done. We need more male champions. We
And
need to bring them on
Our
board.
friend,
When
colleague,
boys are
and
young,
great
before
supporter,
patriarchy
Ms. Frederica
captures
Meyer
them, and we need to help them
of the
stay the course.
UNFPA Country Office,
We need to
Country
do more
Coordinator of
research to
UNFPA.
really understand what underlies the construction of rigid masculinities and especially violent behavior so that we can identify ways to
So,
combat
Liz
and stop
and
this.
Frederica, you
we
just
need
managed to get
gender
the end of
neutralize
the
household and
Delhi
unpaid care work
Declaration,
and get more
which
women
is the call
into professions
from this
traditionally
particular
seen as male.
symposium
20 years
to
ago, at
ourselves
the Beijing
and to the
conference,
rest
the
of the world.
Declaration and Platform for
And,
Action that was adopted
wondering
by the
would
delegates
you like
called on men and boys to get with the struggle and to embrace the principle
So
of
I'd like
shared
to- I
power
was kind
and
of
responsibility
sudden, you just
between
walked
men and women
So
at
I'd
home,
like to
in the
invite
workplace,
Liz,
and
to
in the
give us,
wider national
her
and international
thoughts
communities.
On, what she
2015
sees
is
as
a
the
big year
directions
internationally.
for beyond 2015.
We'll all
Please,
be
the
in
floor.
New York in March for the Beijing Plus 20
to
Summit.
start by paying my
We'll also
respects
be
to
watching the
colleagues who are on
negotiations
the podium
between
and
countries
warmly
as they
greeting
struggle
all of
to
you
create a
in
new
solidarity.
global social
As the head
compact
of the
that will
28
replace
United
the
Nations
MDGs when they
agencies that have
expire
the
next
privilege of
year.
serving
This
in India,
conference
we're
has helped
honored to
enormously
be
to
part
build
of this
momentum for
closing
both of
ceremony
these
and
events.
session.
To draw
This has been an
attention
enormously
to and
important
insist-
conference. I don't have to tell you that.
Insist
Allow
on
us
the
to
unshakable
congratulate the host of
proposition
the Men
that the
Engaged
world
Global
must commit
Alliance
itself
and the
to
Center for
fight
Health and
for
Social
and measure
Justice for bringing
progress
together
towards gender
1,200
justice.
delegates
We're
from
all
94
incredibly grateful
countries
to the
to talk
organizers
about
of the
gender
conference
justice. The
for
UN
bringing
family
us
feels
together and
privileged
allowing
to
this
have been a
discussion to
partner
happen.
of this symposium.
We're all incredibly
A lot
grateful
of
to
ground
all
has
of
been
us
covered in
who
the
believe
last
so
4
much
days
in the struggle
in ways that we
that
all
not
should
only
be
are we
proud
here
of.
at this conference,
Really
but that we will
important
continue
issues
our work,
have been talked
when we
about,
debate
argued
the new
about,
social
and
compact,
explored.
and when we all go
We've
to
looked
New
at
York for Beijing Plus
socializing
20.
and
Thank you for
norming
letting the UN
health
be part of
and
this.
well-being,
Poverty and work, care, relationships, and emotions.
Thanks very much, Liz.
And identities.
I think
peace
we are
building,
honored
social
by the
justice
sense of
and inclusion,
partnership
and
that
we've looked at
you have
violence.
expressed.
We've
And
heard
we
experts
really
and
value
practitioners
the key
talk
issues
about
that you
these
have
issues
flagged for
in
us.
26
I would now
sessions
request
and numerous
Frederica Meyer
satellite meetings.
to give
We've
us
looked at
some of the
400
thoughts on
abstracts
how the
from
UN would commit
63
itself to
countries,
future
visited
action
50
in this field.
exhibition
Frederica.
booths, and interacted with hundreds of organizations. We've reached out beyond Delhi through live coverage and social media, spurring
you.
debates,
Thank you, Yashoda,
networks,
for giving
and
us an
informal
opportunity.
meetings that will keep
Thank
the
you for the
conversation
organizers,
going for
respected
years to
people on
come.
the dais, respected
There is
leaders.
also no doubt
Dear
that we
participants,
created
what a
a
journey
buzz
this was.
for the
I mean,
He
what
for
an
She
exciting
campaign,
week this was,
something
no?
we care a lot
saw
about
a lot
in
of
the
energy
UN.
here, and
It's a mark
I must
of the
say, I myself,
conference's
I feel
success
extremely
and
inspired,
impact that the discussions
inspired by
between
whatever happened
experts,
this week.
academics,
Unfortunately,
gender
I couldn't
activists,
attend
transgender activists, youth
all
policymakers,
the,
and civil society organizations have
all
resulted
the,
in the 10-point Delhi
sessions.
Declaration. This is a
luckily I have
smart,
the rest of my speech
bold,
on paper.
inspirational declaration that everybody should be reading in every country. It is especially important as all of us around the world prepare for the
as we stand
Beijing
together
Plus
at this
20
occasion
summit
of the
coming
second
next
Man
year.
Engaged Global
A lot
Symposium
is
on
at stake
engaging
at the
men
summit.
and boys for gender
We, all of
justice.
us,
We
have a
acknowledge our
choice
joint
whether to
responsibility
keep
to
pushing
uphold
for
dignity
more
and
and
human
more
rights of all
progress
people
on
with our
gender
actions,
issues and gender
our work,
justice,
and through our respective
or whether we
platforms.
hold true to the
We
progress
note
we've
and are
already
grateful for
made
the many
and try to
achievements that have made
consolidate
this
it,
to advance
or
gender
whether,
equality
and this
members
is a
of Parliament
possibility
over the
that we
last
cannot
decades.
ignore,
However, we stand
we
today
allow our
facing critical challenges.
hard-fought gains to be
Too many women and
distorted
girls
and
still
reshaped,
suffer
perhaps
injustice
even rolled back. everyone fighting for gender justice, indeed for any form of social justice, knows that one of the biggest mistakes we can make is to underestimate the forces of reaction that threaten to undermine the great strides that have been made. That's what's at stake when we go to New York in March. This conference has been at the positive end of the spectrum, the opposite end of reaction,
transform our
charting out
responses.
bold new ways of looking at
No
gender
longer should any
identities
girl, boy,
and gender
women or man be
practices
abused,
and bold new
violated or
ways of
killed.
working together as
No longer
engaging
should
men
any
and
girl
boys
be deprived
in
of her
reaching the
education,
milestones
be
we
married,
want to
be
reach
harmed or
in the
abused.
fight for gender justice.
No longer
Of the
should
many
any boy
important
face
points
and
that have been
witness
raised
and
at the
perpetuate
conference, I hope
violence
you will
because
allow
of the
us
need to be seen
highlight
as a
3
real
of the
man.
ones we have found most
No
compelling.
longer should any young
The
women
first
and
point,
men be
and
denied
it's an
the right
unshakable
to
one,
enjoy a respectful
is that there can be no gender justice unless patriarchy is challenged and is changed. Patriarchal practices are the cause of the worst kinds of crimes against women. They are the cause of intergenerational, interconnected, unending discrimination against women, and they are the reason that traditional gender roles where men exercise power over women are reinforced and don't go away. They are also the reason why men are trapped in stereotypical roles that take away their choices and their freedom of expression. The second point is that gender justice isn't going to be achieved until men feel comfortable taking on roles traditionally seen as female, until domestic work, family work, and caregiving are as much men's province as they are women's province, until jobs and work and productive activities are gender blind and gender neutral. When I say this, I say it from my heart. As one of the few women commanding officers in United Nations peacekeeping operations who has commanded troops in conflicts and wars to protect civilians, I know personally that when jobs are gendered, by definition, they are unequal. The third great compelling point to come from this conference is the really important idea that sharing power with women is not a zero-sum game for men, but a winning proposition. The more gender justice there is, the more child mortality goes down. The more gender justice there is, the higher national incomes go. The more gender justice there is, the number of hungry people goes down. And as the professor showed us on that first day, the more gender justice there is, the happier we are all going to be. Achieving gender justice is in with our reach, but as we all know, it's not going to be easy to achieve. One of the great things about the conference has been the way that we've identified with clarity and pragmatism what needs to be done. We need more male champions. We need to bring them on board when boys are young before patriarchy captures them, and we need to help them stay the course. We need to do more research to really understand what underlies the construction of rigid masculinities and especially violent behavior so that we can identify ways to combat and stop this. We need to gender neutralize household and unpaid care work and get more women into professions traditionally seen as male. 20 years ago, at the Beijing conference, the Declaration and Platform for Action that was adopted by the delegates called on men and boys to get with the struggle and to embrace the principle of shared power and responsibility between men and women at home, in the workplace, and in the wider national and international communities. 2015 is a big year internationally. We'll all be in New York in March for the Beijing Plus 20 Summit. We'll also be watching the negotiations between countries as they struggle to create a new global social compact that will replace the MDGs when they expire next year. This conference has helped enormously to build momentum for both of these events, to draw attention to and insist on the unshakable proposition that the world must commit itself to fight for and measure progress towards gender justice. We're all incredibly grateful to the organizers of the conference for bringing us together and allowing this discussion to happen. We're all incredibly grateful to all of us who believe so much in this struggle that not only are we here at this conference, but that we will continue our work when we debate the new social compact and when we all go to New York for Beijing Plus 20. Thank you for letting the UN be part of this.
Thanks very much, Lise. I think we are honored by the sense of partnership that you have expressed, and we really value the key issues that you have flagged for us. I would now request Frederica Meyer to give us some of the thoughts on how the UN would commit itself to future action in this field. Frederica.
Thank you. Thank you, Yashoda, for giving us an opportunity. Thank you for the organizers, respected people on the dais, respected Lise. Dear participants, what a journey this was. I mean, what an exciting week this was, no? I saw a lot of energy here, and I must say, I myself, I feel extremely inspired by whatever happened this week. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend all the sessions, but luckily I have the rest of my speech on paper. Thank you. Good. So, as we stand together at this occasion of the second Man Engaged Global Symposium on engaging men and boys for gender justice, we acknowledge our joint responsibility to uphold dignity and human rights of all people with our actions, our work, and through our respective platforms. We note and are grateful for the many achievements that have made to advance gender equality and women's empowerment over the last decades. However, we stand today facing critical challenges. Too many women and girls still suffer indignities of discrimination, violence, and multiple forms of injustice. Often, such violations take place in most intimate spheres of women's lives, particularly with regard to sexuality, reproduction, and bodily integrity. When such violations are inflicted, particularly to those who should be most interested in their dignity and well-being, including partners and fathers, we feel deeply aggrieved and hurt, as well as challenged to strengthen our efforts and transform our responses. No longer should any girl, boy, woman, or man be abused, violated, or killed. No longer should any girl be deprived of her education, be married, be harmed, or abused. No longer should any boy face and witness and perpetuate violence because of the need to be seen as a real man. No longer should any young women and men be denied the right to enjoy a respectful,